So we are going back in time today. We are going back to 2015. We're going back to my first and only EP that has ever been released, the Flash Drive EP. So back in 2015, I was a very different person, a very different producer. So today is going to be a trip down memory lane. It's going to be interesting because I'm going to have to go back to this project and look at the stuff that I was doing back then, which I don't do anymore, but I'm doing it for you guys. I also think Bubble Wrap is probably the only good song on the EP. So that's why we're doing it today. I think it's time to jump into it. So let's go. Hey, here we are, guys. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to play the song for you guys. Let's jump in. Now, there's a lot going on here. I'm actually kind of scared. There is just so many layers here. I can't believe how many tiny, stupid sounds I put in this song. So let's have a listen to just the drums, I reckon. In that group, I have three things. I got the main drum elements, I got the cymbals, and I got this extra percussion. So let's bring them in one by one. Good kick and snare. So we got a kick. Tambourine on top of the kick to give it a bit of texture. Snare. Claps. Another clap. Perk 46, which is one of the signature things that I have in a lot of my songs. It's from the Roland DR660 machine. It's just such a cool sound. It's like a weird, sort of sparkly clap sound. I don't know, it's very hard to describe, but there's nothing like it, and I use it in a lot of songs. That kind of covers the main drums. The kick is literally just this plugin, Bassism, Bazzism. This is what it looks like, and it's just basically a sine wave and envelope generator, and it lets you make a big kick sweep thing. It's just like a sine wave thud with a bit of EQ, compression, saturation. It's chunky as hell. I add the tambourine on top. So it adds a little bit more real texture to it. The snare is 2 layers. So this is just literally a 808 sample from the Ableton sound library, the Ableton Core sound library. This is a Lex Luger trap clap sample, which I used all the time. It's got a lot of texture. So I've processed each of these samples individually and then as a group. So a bit of overdrive on the snare, compression, saturation, the usual suspects, nothing fancy. We got cymbals here. Look how many cymbal layers there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So excessive. Let's look at these samples. We got the Lex Crash. Everyone knows about the Lex Crash. Classic. The most overused crash cymbal in electronic music history, but still used it. It's the best. It's so good. It just always fits perfectly with whatever you're doing. So good. But I've also got a Bright Crash from, again, Ableton stock library. It's just like a regular drum kit crash. Then there's also this other cymbal, which is like a sort of trap crash cymbal thing. Again, Lex Luger. So yeah, you got all these different cymbal layers which sit on top of the drums. And then there's this third layer in the drums, which is percussion. So this is what we got here. This is a drum rack that I made using the Latin percussion library in Ableton. There's actually more than just Latin percussion here. Some of it's Latin percussion, like these shakers, cabasas, maracas, but there's also a lot of DR660, that classic Roland machine. There's a lot of that in there too. You can, if you have a look down here in the drum rack, you can see the different samples triggering. Even though there's so many different layers in here, each of them is very little and small and has its own place. So I kind of treat the whole thing as it's one instrument, like a perk loop. To complement that, if you watched the last stream, you watched me shout out freesound.org. I'm about to shout out freesound.org yet again. I need one of those air horns. Freesound.org, because they've come through again. Improv perks from freesound.org. These are just some samples of drumsticks or something, some sort of stick percussion that I found on freesound.org. I just edited them, chopped them and edited them, and made a little loop. You can see the compression and saturation and EQ and whatever. It's also sidechained to the kick with the percussion loop. I could sell that one layer to an Apple commercial. I wish. I'd love to do that. Let's keep going. Let's keep powering through. We've got a lot to get through. The breakbeat. Ooh, there we go. There we go. That's nice. I like that. In this song, I must have just been trying to squeeze as many ubiquitous samples in here as I possibly could. That kind of speaks for itself. So this is a breakbeat sample. So hype. So I think I wanted to have that in there as a way to switch up between the halftime feel and the full-time feel. You can see the tempo of the song is actually 184. So 184 beats per minute, which is stupidly fast, but I'm treating it as like as a 92 because half of 184 is 92. So really the groove is 92 beats per minute. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm treating this as like a proper 184, like, but the actual groove is like half that speed. That kind of covers it for like all the main drum elements, I think. There's so many layers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 layers of vocal chops. That's so dumb. So let's have a listen to the arps I've got here. So we got the main melody here. That's like the main melody hook. And then with the arps, so obviously the sound design choices are making that melody cut through a lot. It's like a lot of brightness. And the arp is kind of a bit more mellow sounding. So that's one of the arps. Don't worry, there's plenty more. Oh yeah, so I like to categorize my arps into different groups. There's like arps which loop and consistently roll on, like do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and then there's these like splashes which happen like, and then they fade away. I call them arp splash. So it kind of splashes and then goes away. It just kind of does one like, but then if you have the delay on there, kind of tails off into the distance. So interestingly, this arp is actually sample based. Normally I would use synths for arps, but that's like the regular pitch of the sound, but I'm playing it really high up. So that's kind of like sitting on top of the other arps. It adds just a different texture. Adding a bit of textural juxtaposition. Let's open it up. We got Sylenth. We got... Oh, we can make it big now. That's cool. Let's make it nice and big. So in Sylenth, we have this waveform, which is the tri-saw. So it's a combination of a triangle and a saw wave. 5 voices of unison, detuned. So that means that there's 5 of them playing with every note. Detuned means that each of the 5 of them is slightly detuned from each other so that they create this sort of chorusy effect. They're fully stereo panned as well, so the 5 voices are all stereo field. This amp envelope is just like attack, decay, sustain, release, so it's very short attack, so just instantaneous as soon as you start the note. Sustain is minimum, so that means that there's no, like as soon as the decay phase is over, it goes to 0, so there's no sound. And the release is like very, very short, and the decay here is just a very short decay, so every note basically, if I didn't have the arpeggiator on, I'll turn that off. Just a very short blip. Every time I hit a note, that's the amp envelope doing that. But with the arpeggiator, if I hold down the chords, each of those short notes is playing really quickly in succession and creating that arp. Oscillator 2 is doing absolutely nothing. There's no voices. There's no filter being used here. It's turned off. There's no effects being used. There's no modulation being used. There's no LFO. And that's literally it for the Sylenth patch. Oh, and the arpeggiator is just set to really fast rate, like 30-second notes, which is really fast. Steps 2 means that it's spanning 2 octaves. So if I have that at none, 1 note is just staying in the 1 octave. 1 is It bounces between the octave above, and then 2 means it goes low, middle, high. So 3 octaves in total. There's also string pizzicatos in the background of that as well. There's a bit of grain delay. Grain delay is cool because you can have the delays be pitched. So in this case, every time it repeats in the delay, it's going up an octave. So it creates this really crazy, like rising, sparkly sensation. Pretty fun. So yeah, that's kind of that build section. I quite like this build section. The chord progression here is pretty nice. Oh, there's this crystal up too. Very similar to what I just showed you before, but it's a combination of sine waves and square waves, and the square waves on this side are 3 octaves higher, so that gives you, like if I turn this off, you just have that clean sine wave, but then that gives you instant sparkle. It's one of my favorite tricks. This is the only song that I have this many different arpeggios going on. Like, I went so overboard in this song. I don't know why, but I really did. Bubble Wrap is such a big brain song. Huge brain. When I edit this on YouTube, I'm going to put a big, I'm going to like expand my head to make it look really big, so I have a huge brain. Let's play the melodies and the bass and the chords. What makes this song cool is the chord movement, in my opinion. Well, I mean, that's what makes most songs cool, I suppose. But I am quite proud of how it works in this song too. The cool, like, horns. Man, that was pretty cool, actually. Yeah, the brass is fun, hey. Let's see what we got. There's this main saw chord thing here. Basically just like a big like saw wave pad, literally saw waves, 7 voices, detuned, kind of like a super saw pad type of thing. Little bit of pitch envelope on the start. Makes it a bit more stabby at the start, which is always fun. Bit of EQ. Just boosting certain frequencies. Overdrive. Making it a bit more sizzly in the top end. EQ, compression, saturation. Let's look at the chords themselves, I suppose. What do we got? Here's the tonic. So it's in C. Of course it's in C. So that's a 7th. So it's a C with a 7th. Then moving up the scale, a D minor with a 7th, an E minor with a 7th, F. So you're literally just going da 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 up the C major scale, and then there's little like short started chords. It's a combination of that rhythm and the voicing going up that makes it cool, I think. Whoa, they're both D, they're just voiced differently. And then back kind of just does the same thing. And at the end here, da-na-na. So that's kind of a little turnaround to get to the minor, the A here. So I like to sort of resolve to the minor to give it a different taste. Back to the E, back to the C. So it goes da-da, minor, back to the major, like... Yeah, moving on. Same chord progression. I might have changed the voicing of the top notes of the chords. It's the same notes, but probably just like voiced slightly differently. So the horns are just from Kontakt, session horns. So it's a trumpet, a trombone, and another trumpet. This is a cool little plugin. It's like a 4-piece, a brass quartet, I suppose. And you can pick what articulation you want to use. So I think what I did is I took the melody. Yeah, right. So the melody here. da 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 da. That's the main melody line that I was following here. So the rest is actually just harmony. So we've got, that's just a harmonization of this. And then the horns are doing a same thing kind of. So the bottom voice here is the melody. Da, 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 da. And then 2 layers of harmony on top. What have we got here? Some little like backgroundy. And then over here, the horns are actually just following the chord progression. Pretty nice. These little layers here. There's a vocal sample. Don't know where it's from, but like a bunch of like someone like screaming hey or something with a bunch of reverb on it and like modulation, whatever. I'm playing it really high up. So it kind of just sounds like, almost sounds like a synth. You can throw any old thing in a sampler and make it sound good, to be honest. It's kind of one of the fun things about digital music production, that you can do that. That's why technology is so fun. Oh yeah, I need a water. That's what I need. Please allow me to have a sip of water. Hydrate or dihydrate. That is a mantra for life right there. I do not want to dihydrate. So let's go onto the bass. Pretty simple. We got a sub bass right here. I wanted the sub to be very much like a sine wave, but with a little bit of extra thickness. So I added some little bit of thickness. Like that's what these harmonics are. Bit of saturation to bring out some of those harmonics as well. On top of that, we've got a saw wave layer. And all the lows are cut out of this saw wave layer because we've got the sub underneath. So we want the low end to come from the sub. So we don't need it in this one. And I've got overdrive pushing up the highs as well. Just the silence patch. I love how you can make silence big. I swear that's new. So cool. Just pure saw waves, lots of detune, lots of unison, low pass filter, 24 decibel per octave, bit of resonance. You can see the mod envelope here. No effects. Just a simple like plucky saw wave sound. But then yeah, cutting out the lows, overdriving the highs, letting it sit on top of that sub. So kind of treat them as one instrument. 2 layers creating one sound. And then in the breakdown section, we got this. It's just got a big fat auto filter on it. So it kind of sweeps up over time. How and when did the distinct Wave Racer sound come to you? Literally no one else has done it like you. There wasn't like a day where I sat down and I went,
I have the sound. I found the sound.
It wasn't like that. It was like, I just wanted to make music and I had to use what I had at my disposal. So I used my laptop and the things that I could find on the internet and skills from YouTube tutorials and the very limited means that I had on my computer, and I managed to make something creative with it. Obviously, discovering Ableton allowed me to do a lot of that. Like Ableton let me manipulate sounds in a way that I couldn't do that before, like being able to repitch and stretch audio and like sample audio and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of it was just figuring out how to use the technology and then using that technology to put stuff down that I had in my head. And a lot of it only came to my head through using the technology. So it's just a progression of learning how to use the tools that I had and having a musically oriented mind, I suppose. Well, the main melody here is just sort of square wave, unison-y patch with a bit of filtering coming out of silence, bit of delay on there. Pretty simple sound, man. Then over here goes up the octave and we've got an added glockenspiel from Kontakt, but it's actually a glockenspiel and a marimba playing at the same time. This is just the stock Kontakt instruments, comes with Kontakt. A glockenspiel and a marimba like sort of mixed together in this thing here. Synth brass. I like synth brass sounds, like creating a brassy texture out of a saw wave is always fun. Like it can be very expressive. This is not even a particularly good one. It's very like synthetic sounding. I have way better brass sounds now. But at the time, this is what I did. And then layered with actual horns. Now let's get into where it gets real crazy, which is where we have these effects, these sound effects, and these vocal samples. So let me see if I can isolate them and play them all at once. Like, let's just listen to how many little details there are. Loads of details. This song in particular really leans heavily into these little details. I've grouped these into different things. We've got one specifically just for vocal samples, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 11 layers of vocal samples, like a bullet ricochet, gunshots. Yeah, so someone asked about these pops. I may as well cover that right now. So these are a sound effect of just like that kind of, that pop sound. These ones at the bottom here, I did actually record myself. Those are my pops, like coming directly from my own mouth. And then these top ones are samples of other people doing that. They have a little bit of a different character, but they're all doing the same thing. I've divided them into 3 layers and panned them and differently, and then grouped them together with a bit of drive and stuff. That's pretty much it. Like each layer is EQ'd a little bit, but I've programmed them, like I've put them on the grid rhythmically so that they kind of act as a percussive element too. Like if I play the drums with it, you can hear they kind of come on the off beats. Yeah, so it's not only a sound effect, it's also like a rhythmic element. That one's cool, like the little fast. That's the pops. This car screech happens a grand total of 1 time in the whole song. So it's a car screech sound from a trap sample pack somewhere, and I've pitched it down at the end. That's kind of the sound effects. And then there's these effects, which are basically like more musical effects, like wind chimes, noise sweeps, little like synthesized impacts and stuff like that. So they're not so much like cute cartoonish sound effects, they're more like musical things. So we've got like wind chimes, little subfall, which I made from scratch just in Operator here. Adds a little like noise fall, just white noise. This is actually a sample of white noise that's been repitched. And then I've got another layer that I did, which is the same thing but in reverse, and I just created it myself, sweeping up. And last but not least, we have these vocal samples, and there's a lot going on here. Let me just have another sip of water before we get into this. Hydrate, don't dehydrate. Good stuff. Okay, first thing. This is literally called Vox Sample, and it's labeled R Echo. Genius at work. That's the same thing, but pitched up. These kind of are not meant to actually be like vocal sounds. They're kind of just meant to be sounds. Just some little chops, and then I've got an echo on this one to let it sort of fade out. This is just a sample of a yeah. It's a bunch of kids yelling yeah. It's pretty fun. How many times can I play it before it gets insufferably annoying? We got the butt sample. That's another good one. Bitspeak. This one's cool. Bitspeak's a cool plugin. What this does, it takes like an input, a vocal input, and it turns it into synthesized audio. It's kind of cool. And you've got a bunch of parameters to make it like more lo-fi, more bit crushed, more digital or whatever. So the audio is just like, let's turn this off. Like vinyl scratch vocal kind of vibe. And with the Bitspeak, kind of makes it sound cute. All right. That's fun. So I think I've done some pitch automation on there. Yeah, transposition, make it go down. So it's kind of like, it goes down, but then I've also split it in half so it jumps back into its normal pitch again. That might have even been an accident that I left in because it was like a happy accident.
Check it out.
Oh, that's a good one.
Check it out.
Check it out.
I think this is from like a toy keyboard. We've kind of gone through every element in the song now. I'm so excited for you to hear my new music. The music that I have waiting on my hard drive to be heard right now, I just got back a bunch of masters like earlier this week. Man, it's honestly the best music I've ever made. It's nerve-wracking because it is different to what I'm just showing you now. Like it's different to what I was doing in 2015. Very different. But it's also better, in my opinion. Like different doesn't have to mean worse, you know? Different is actually mostly good because it means that there's been some sort of progression and growth, which is almost always beneficial for everyone involved. Not only me as an artist to grow, but also for people listening. They get to hear the evolution of something, and they get to be continually inspired rather than hearing the same stuff over and over again. Thanks, guys. I'll catch you guys at the next one. See you later. Bye.